So, super excited about this. This is something that I've wanted to talk more and more about. I've been talking about a lot, the researcher effort score, ever since I first heard about it on Kate Towsey's Chow Chow podcast, which we actually sponsored, where Pedro was on there and sort of just threw it in almost as a throwaway line about how he thinks about measuring impact for research teams. And ever since then, I'm like, oh my God, this is genius. Like we need to talk more about this. And so we've been trying to find a way to go and chat more about it. So um, Pedro Vargas is a leader really in the research ops space and the creator of, or I guess the originator of, or I guess the creator of the research effort score, the developer of that. And you can talk more about how you like to frame that. But it's a framework that really helps organizations measure the ease of conducting research with confidence. Um, and when he's not, I guess, thinking about and espousing new ideas around research ops, he's also in research ops at Banco do Brasil. Is that correct? I don't know how much you want to talk about that, professional side versus personal, but that's okay. But for those who don't know you, maybe you can share a little bit about your journey and I guess what got you into research ops more broadly.
Yeah, let's do it. Thanks, Nat. Thanks. Great question, team. Thanks, everyone in the chat. Talking from São Paulo. I was in Florianopolis before. I think the last time I talked with you, Nat, I was in Floripa. I was in an island and I was saying I was moving to São Paulo, so I'm here right now. So when I joined like this research field, to be honest, it was, I can say 2018. I was one of the first researchers in a startup in an e-commerce platform here in Brazil. That's quite challenging because this startup was growing at the time, and the product team came with this idea and need of let's get the insights from the users so we can know what to do next. I didn't have any studies or courses or nothing like about research. So I was one of the first researchers in the company without taking any course. It was 2018, before pandemic. I would say it was a different market, different a different moment. For example, webinars like this, I couldn't see webinars like this happening at that time. I just got to know ResearchOps, the term ResearchOps, after a year and a half working with research. Also, we have this language barrier. Like I'm Portuguese native speaker. I'm not an English native speaker, as you can see. But there was this challenge of doing things at the same time we were researching. So the first time I had contact with ResearchOps was when I was interviewing customers. And at the same time, I needed a place to share my insights. And then I got to know this repository, these words that is like part of our job, not only for research ops professionals, but also for UX researchers and also product managers and also UX designers. So that was my first contact. And then I got to know Kate Towsey. I got to know like the research ops community. I got to know the tools, like the blog posts, like Great Question has. And yeah, it helped a lot. Now I'm a research ops leader in the Bank of Brazil. So you've mentioned right, Ned. Like in Portuguese, it's Banco do Brasil, but it's quite fine saying like you said. I usually say that it's also quite challenging because we're talking about the most traditional bank here in the country. Just for you to know, it's a bank created by the Prince of Portugal.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So it's a public one. It's a centenary bank. It brings a lot of like experience, but also a lot of cultural challenges, I would say. And we have this research ops team inside the Center of Excellence in UX, inside the technology area. That's where I am right now, like working with research ops, with more people. Also, we have this content ops folks by our side, also the design ops people, also the
Mm.
governance, security around us. Like I'm inside this center of excellence. I don't know if you've mentioned, if you have heard of it before, Ned, but it's something that is becoming very popular, at least in banks, I see in the world, to create this center of excellence.
Yeah, we're seeing it more and more. I think different size organizations. I believe Intuit has something similar as a center of excellence, and that's where ResearchOps is based and research is based as well, which is interesting, right? That we're putting research as a key part of our centers of excellence is an interesting idea. I know we didn't talk about this beforehand, but I think one thing I'm curious about before we get into talk a bit more about ResearchOps and the effort score is I get a sense that there's quite a big research ops community in Brazil. Um, and I'm curious why you think that is. Is that research is so pervasive and is really highly valued in Brazil, maybe versus other non-English speaking countries that I'm exposed to? Is it just that you're very vocal? Like maybe there's that. It's like this crossover that's happening. People that don't know, we actually have Great Question has quite a sizable team in Florianopolis where Pedro used to be based, which describes itself as effectively the Silicon Valley of LATAM. Um, and so is it that we're very innovative? Yeah, keen to hear your perspective on why there is such that big community down there.
Like, I think it's like that's my take on this, right? I think it's because we are Brazilians. Just saying, because like we want to know each other. We create
Mm,
WhatsApp groups to
mm,
talk
mm.
about work. We create events. We go to conferences together. Like we meet ourselves. We have this like every week we have events to talk about UX in general or research. So I think it's more a cultural aspect, more than like we are um, one step ahead. No, we are not. Like
Mhm.
I can say this, and that's why I think we have a lot of Brazilians here trying to understand what's happening outside Brazil and Latam to bring new ideas home. Because yeah, I think that's it. And yeah, um, we're very happy. We like to meet each other. Like I think 2 weeks ago, we did a meetup in hamburger place, just re-ops professionals talking about re-ops and also not talking about work, which is good too. That's
That's
it.
awesome. That's awesome. Love that. What a vibe. Awesome. Well, let's rip in, I guess, before we get into the talking about the researcher effort score. When we think about the strategic role of research ops, like I think a bunch of people still think of it as this kind of admin-y kind of job. Um, like, do you think that's changing? Like, do you think that that's the perception? And like, how does your work kind of change? Like, what have you been doing to, I guess, change that?
I have different answers. Let me start by the first one. I see that reops, that there is administrative work in reops, period. We have to do some operational tasks, such as other positions and other people in the company have. So I think it's part of the game. Like we need to fill spreadsheets, we need to recruit participants. Sometimes we have a good tool to help us, like Great Question. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we have to do everything manually. We have to lose time doing what could be automated. Um, but yeah, it's part of the game. I need to be honest about it. But we also have what I call the strategic side of reops, which I think it's what brought us here today to talk about
Mm.
metrics, to talk about impact, to talk about strategy. That's something that's part of the game as well. Like this week, I think it was yesterday, we did a reops diagnosis in the bank. We invited some UX researchers to join a workshop. Everyone was on a Fig Jam. And then we started mapping the pain points and the doubts they had in each one of the 6 pillars or 8 pillars of ResearchOps. And it's going to be like, we're going to feed the next plan for the next semester with these thoughts and ideas and pain points. So that's part of the game as well. It's also part of the game to think about knowledge management, which I think is like the core of ResearchOps. I'm a very big fan of it. And I don't think people see knowledge management the way it was supposed to be seen. Like people see it just as a repository. It's more than that. Like we have institutions, at least here in Brazil, to represent the knowledge management professionals. There are a lot of things there, a lot of best practices there around so many big and small companies. So it's more than that. Also, like, yeah, I think that's it. We have these two sides of the reops function. But I have to say that in some companies, it depends on the maturity, it depends on the size of the company. In some companies, reops professionals will be doing more administrative tasks. And it's a reality. It's a reality that we can accept, or we can like accept and see what we can do to change it. And it's not going to be changed for like tomorrow, the next month. It's going to take time to be changed. I was talking with a very good friend, a research ops professional here in Brazil. She's working for an international company in the US. She was hired to do reops, and she's being the recruiter. Like in the end, she doesn't have time, and people doesn't want her to work on the other pillars, just in the recruitment. So it happens. But it also happens when I have like my reality right now. I don't do recruitment. We have like closed a partnership with another team to do that. And then I can focus on the other things like training, knowledge management. Like next week, we're doing one of our biggest events. It's called Research Expo. So we select the Center of Excellence. We created a evaluation committee. Basically, we selected 3 cases, 3 research made, and that were in our research repository to be shown and exposed to the entire company. It's a huge event. We empower people to talk about research, sharing their cases, sharing their thoughts, their learnings with more than 400 designers, which is like the amount of people work for today.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think kind of what I take from that is, look, it's still, yes, there is still a lot of administrative type functions there, but by taking the time to go and bring in your stakeholders, which is both like going and doing this journey mapping and understanding like where are the things that they're worried about, carving out the time to go and do things that are more strategic, like training, to go and capacity building ultimately, and then yeah, sharing these case studies across the broader UX team. You're getting away from, oh, I thought you were just here to kind of do this thing, do this recruitment for me, press this button, get these things solved for me. It's like, no, it's bigger than that. You know, lean into this is very powerful, can be very powerful when you embrace it. I do want to flag, we've got, if you've got questions throughout the session, it makes it so much more fun when people like throw questions in and interact. So throw them into the chat and we'll try and bring them into the conversation as we go, or we'll also have Q&A at the end. I guess, what's your take on the relationship between research ops and UX maturity? Because you kind of touched on that a little bit, but you know, maybe as it scales in an organization, like you're obviously in a very large organization, a lot of controls are in place. You talked about design ops and research ops and security being all part of the center of excellence, even having a center of excellence at all. But yeah, maybe you can talk about that interplay.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we can create a connection here. From my understanding and from my perspective, at least in my reality here, when we talk about maturity, people start thinking about size of the company, size of the team. It can be connected. I think it's not wrong, but it's more than that. Like I remember myself in that first company I told you, in that e-commerce platform company, working just with one more researcher. I can say we had more freedom to do things I can't do today, But at the same time, today I have more processes, more standards to follow that. At that time, I didn't. So it's not a single answer for this question. It depends. We have this UX maturity quiz in the Nielsen Norman Group website. I think it's a good way to start thinking about it. It's a quiz, it's a questionnaire, like a form to fill in, and then you have the result. If you don't know it yet, just put on Google like UX maturity quiz and you can see it. And why I'm saying that, there are like sections there that I really believe they are part of this maturity evaluation. So when we have ResearchOps on that, in my reality right now, we are helping more than 400 UX professionals. And when I say professionals, I'm saying writers, designers, researchers, also product managers, also product owners, along all the company. So it's different to do ResearchOps in a small company for 10 designers. I have these both experiences, and I can say it's different. But yeah, but it depends. It depends. It's not only about size. It's not only about context. It's also about knowledge. We have this seniority issue aspect coming in. Like the team is more senior. Is the team more junior? Like we have many things involved in that. But ReOps can and should be improving that with standards, with the search for more efficiency during the process, to bring more the researchers together, which is something I really believe in, to establish this community of practice that from my take, I don't see many companies doing that because they have to follow all the meetings that they already have. So they can't, for some reason, they can't find 1 hour per month to talk about practices, to talk about their learnings and what they need to improve. I don't know why that happens.
I think part of that is,
I know it,
yeah,
I can't
everyone's
believe it.
busy and they've got their own things going on. I think so much of it is like just someone to go and put their hand up and say, hey, I want to go and do a brown bag lunch about this topic or that topic, or I want to do a book club, or I want to do something. Because it really is that it's that work that's not rewarded and it's not part of your job description. But I think it is the work that also levels up the organization and actually makes the individual stand out as a more strategic member of the team that's pushing the function forward. And I'm so thankful for the people in our company that do that in various ways. Like some people are doing brown bags on our product because our product's quite broad. Not everyone's exposed to the product. Other people are doing it on research methodologies, and others are actually doing it on the research that they've been conducting and what they've been learning. But yeah, it's extracurricular. It's not the standard. I want to shift to talking about the research effort score because I know we're 20 minutes in and we haven't really touched on it so much yet. So many people have probably heard of the research effort score. Hopefully, you've probably heard of customer effort score. Can you share us a little bit about what is it, first of all, and then what led you to develop it? Maybe we can start there.
Yeah, can I share my screen? I
Yeah,
prepared
great. Yeah, please. That's awesome.
a few slides so people can follow my thoughts and see some examples as well. Let me do it. Can you see it?
Yeah, got it.
Great. So first of all, the researcher effort score is a metric we're following here in the team, and some other ReOps professionals are starting to talk with me to implement in their companies. It was not supposed to be complex. It's not that difficult. We just need someone in charge of it or a team in charge of it to apply and to make everything happen. But before talking about the score, I need to say that we have these different types that you can see there in the bullet points of metrics. I didn't say that. Kate Tozzi said that, and I agree 100%. like we need to think about more ways to share the value of research without just like creating events to talk about the importance of research. Like I see that we have overcome this place of doing meetings to talk with directors that research ops is important, that research is important, that UX is important, but they need numbers. They need ways to see if we are growing, if we are like at the same level we were before, so they can criticize about it. And I think it's very productive from our side to start thinking about this now. So we have like this participant recruitment metrics, onboarding metrics, financial metrics. It's everything in this in Keitos's book. And then with that in mind, we created our list of metrics in the bank. These are some of the ResearchOps metrics me and my team are responsible for. I'm not going to read all of them. It's also I think it's in a fixed post on my LinkedIn, all of them listed. You can see it there. And then, of course, the recording here again. But we have this researcher effort score. Basically, it's a son or a daughter of the customer effort score. I would say like this. So I didn't reinvent the wheel. I just thought about that once we are getting the customer vision, if it was difficult or easy to use a product, we have our customers, we have our clients inside the company. For example, in my case, we have those 400 designers and they do research. Are they like, do they feel that it's easy or difficult to do research in the bank? We didn't know it. Like almost no one knows it. People like will share thoughts. Oh, I heard someday that someone had a problem around that and blah, blah, blah. No, they don't have a number. We don't have a structured procedure to get those comments and those feedbacks. Then I tried to implement the customer effort score for researchers or for people who do research. It worked well. It became our North Star metric in the Center of Excellence inside this ResearchOps team. And it's very similar to the customer effort score. And I have to say, I didn't invent the customer effort score. It was basically Gartner. There is this, I really recommend this article from Harvard Business Review called Stop Trying to Delight Your Customers. It opened my mind and showed me that we need to keep simple with things, and then we can think about getting things more complex. So at this time, we have chosen the researcher effort score to be our main metric. So just to clarify things, the customer effort score, it's a simple question. When people see it there in the apps and in the softwares asking if it was easy or difficult to resolve the issue or to interact with a section, specific point in the journey of that product. The scales can be from 1 to 7. It was the original one, but I really like the 1 to 5 one. I think it's the more simple, the better. The calculation is very simple. It's out there. It's the sum of customer responses by the total number of responses. And this box here, I think it's like almost everything that people need to think about the researcher effort score. We need to think about specific interactions, specific parts of the research process. So the researcher effort score can be implemented like a questionnaire, a form, an embedded form after people recruit a participant. So there's a tip here for a great question. After someone try to find a report in the research repository, right after someone tries to find an answer about a question they have in a portal or in a knowledge base, or something like this. So to understand this 3, 2, maybe 4 main steps in the research process, and to ask people if it was easy or difficult to find what they wanted to find or to do what they were supposed to do, I think it's a good way to start. Here in the bank, we ask these 2 questions, which are how easy or difficult was to recruit research participants, and also to find previous research reports. And we also ask another one, which is a more broad one. How easy or difficult was to do research at the Bank of Brazil, basically. And being very, I need to say that I got very surprised, because right after these questions and answers, people really left some comments and feedbacks for us, maybe because they were designers, they were researchers, and they know what we were doing. They helped us in some way. And it's keeping a very good way for us to track if what we are doing today, like this community of practice, that event that I call the Research Expo that I told you before, all those initiatives we're doing, they're having impact. They're seeing the value of having a ResearchOps team inside the Center of Excellence in the bank. Do they see the value of it? It's generating value for them. The process is getting easier or difficult. Do they need a different tool? Are they losing a lot of time doing a specific task, research task? So this is almost 90% of the research effort score. I can stop saying
Awesome.
about the research effort score right here, because if I don't, I'll keep saying a lot.
I loved it so much, I think, when you first heard about it, because, we get customers asking us all the time, how do I measure impact, right? And how do I know that, I buy a great question, or I implement this thing, or I democratize research, or I'm doing just in general in my role, but without a tool, how do I demonstrate impact? And so we've puzzled about that, right? And we've got some metrics. We've got a great dashboard to be able to tell you some of the things that you was tracking there, right? We can tell you how many research requests have been submitted, and how many people are using the tool, and the volume of research that's run, and the time to recruit, and how that's changed and come down. We can talk about tool consolidation and cost savings and things like that. And the idea that a researcher might spend a day a week, 20% of their time in research admin world, and we can bring that down to close to zero by empowering them through a tool. We can talk about risk reduction by having a tool that handles data governance and retention and GDPR compliance and HIPAA compliance and all kind of stuff. But I think this gets closer to the truth, which is, in a previous state, people would say, it's really hard to run research. It's very difficult. I don't know how to do it. And this was my experience that led me to go and start Great Question. It was like everyone was throwing up blockers to stop me. No one wanted me to run research. And then we go and roll out some ResearchOps programs and provide some tooling and some training and some guidance, some guardrails, and then suddenly it becomes very easy. It becomes as easy as brushing your teeth, drinking a glass of water. I guess a couple of questions I've kind of got around specifically your implementation of this is, the customer effort score you talked about is we're asking these questions very close to the interaction. And in fact, the research effort score is kind of similar. It's like, all right, you tried to do a recruit and now you've been stymied. And so you might say it's very difficult. But I'm curious about, I think when we last talked about this, it sounded like maybe you were also polling on a regular cadence, like once a quarter, to this constituents of designers or PMs to say, because they might not even get into the tool to go and actually give you an answer on this. And so that's a failure as well. How do you think about that, this in the moment versus like more of a longitudinal study?
Great question. So you see, great question. So in the bank today, we do this twice a year. That's what we can do. Unfortunately, we don't do that embedded in the journey of doing research. Like, as I told you, inside the portal, right after recruitment, because we would need a developer to do the majority of those things, and we don't have it right now. but we want to do that. That's what I told you, that it could be awesome if all the tools out there could implement something like this and give the customers, us, these results. Would be amazing. So researchers out here start asking the tools, and also great question to implement that. Um, but yeah, I agree. But yeah, we do it twice a year. It depends on the reality of every team, every company. We can't find time and resource to do that more often. But I agree that 4 times a year, 3 times a year could be better. So we have more recent results and more trustable results. We want to implement that inside of our repository to ask this question right now, because in the recruitment side, I don't think it's going to be possible right now, but in many companies, it's going to be possible to embed these questions right after something is done, after recruitment is done, after research is downloaded from the repository or something like this. That's the goal. That should be the goal for everyone. It doesn't mean that if we don't have this, we can't do that. No, we can. We can create a form, send people, and start having these results. They're not going to be like as trustable as the ones right after the interaction, but we already have some numbers out there and some comments and feedbacks. I can say it works because we have applied, we have used the score 2 times so far. I've been a year, I've completed a year in the bank, so we have used 2 times. And we saw the score growing after some initiatives we did during the year, and people recognized the initiatives we did, like in the feedbacks, in the comments. So it works. People can see it, and also people can give low grades, like no low numbers there, because we didn't have any specific tool. So people know it. People are like, we are doing research with researchers, with product managers, with designers, and they're they're the most annoying and amazing people I know. Like at the same time, I am the most annoying and the amazing people I know. Like, because we know what's wrong, we will say that it's wrong, but like they know everything. They're not going to be like, you are the worst in the field. No, you can be the best, but that's missing. So I think it's a good public to do this kind of research, to implement this kind of score. If it was like with customers, with users, I imagine my mom answering a customer effort score. I don't know if like the confidence behind this evaluation by her, by someone else. With researchers, I think it's like a more controlled public to do those things. So I don't think to do a questionnaire form, if you can't embed, if you can't do this with a developer, I don't think it's that bad.
And so you talked about, you've been doing it now for a year, so you've had 2 of these polls gone out, and you've seen better results in subsequent than the initial. I guess, could you give me a specific example of which score, which factor was about the recruitment, finding past insights that scored poorly, and then you're able to move it up to the right? Like, and what program did you then go and put into place that then helped you see that impact?
A lot of things. So I can say we grew 30% of like this perception that it was easy to do research in the bank in 6 months. We started like I think the main initiative was to share with people that we were there in our mission, what we were doing, to give visibility of the things that were being done by the team and for everyone. We created what we call a researchers forum, which is like this group of selected UX researchers who are almost or 100% dedicated to research to bring on Teams meeting. We use Microsoft in the bank on a Teams meeting and share learnings and to create this networking. People like we ended up seeing that a researcher from a specific product didn't know anything about research projects in another specific product, and we are in the same company, we're in the same like area of technology. Why does that happening? So that was the first thing, to give visibility of the things that were already taking place and what we wanted to do. I think that's the main thing we did. We also like revamped the research repository in a way that was a little bit more easy for people to be informed about what was being done by the teams. We have this bot inside the Teams channel saying a research was done by Nad and Pedro. They are from this team, and blah blah blah. And people leave comments there, and okay, congratulations. So I'll reach out to you to talk about this project and blah blah blah. So these automations also helped us to improve the number, to improve the result. And I'll say the trainings. For example, next week, we're doing a training specifically to teach people or to share best practices on creating research reports, like the differences among insights, data, like raw data and all those things, because we ended up seeing that people were like, they were not understanding what was an insight, a finding, a data, a number, like it was not like good. And that's because, that's something interesting. That's because we have this process to assess and to evaluate all research reports that are like in our repository. We have people in the team that read all the reports, and we have this criteria that all the reports should meet. And then if a report doesn't meet all the criteria or all the basic criteria, we see what was happening. For example, accessibility is one of the hot topics for us, and it should be in every company, by the way. So if we don't have this alt text in the images, if we start seeing that happening, we will train people to do that. We will communicate about it. So we try to be close to the researchers and to the designers with those things. There are many other things we did, mainly involved with the tools and tooling and all those things, but it's quite challenging because, as I told you, the bank is a public company, so it's not easy to hire a different tool. You need to pass through a lot of steps in the procurement process, more than the average. A lot more than the average, by the way.
Yeah, love that. And the idea that, a 30% gain in that relatively short period of time by rolling out those programs is huge. And I love also that you're also talking about not just the perception of how easy it is to go and access these things, you're also talking about quality, right? And you're talking about making sure the quality reporting is done and that people are talking about it the right way and presenting it the right way, so that we're not just doing more. It's easy to run research. It's easy to run high quality research, and the insights we're getting out, are they actually of a standard? I'm curious there whether or not you're asking that question, or whether this is an opportunity to ask to get a perception of quality from the exec team or everyone else, and also even a perception of impact. Because I think this is kind of the question that I've got is, all right, it's easy to run research, it's easy to access the repository, but have you got any data? Are you thinking about impacts on revenue or sales or innovation cycles? And I think it's also actually kind of interesting. This is more of a comment than a question, but the first part was a question. The second part was a comment, which is, it's interesting we talk about accessibility, which we also believe in, and we've got a AA rating, and all that's important. but nobody's really necessarily asking about what is the impact of accessibility, right? We're all doing all this work because it's so
Mhm.
intrinsic. It's so obvious that, of course, our platform should be accessible, but we're not necessarily thinking about that when it comes to research. Why not, right? To say, of course, we should do research. Of course, we should understand our, and we also, of course, we should have researcher effort scores. Anyway, so maybe come back a little bit. The question really being, do you have any data, or are you thinking about measurement on impact to revenue, sales, or innovation, or perceptions of impact, or perceptions of quality?
Yeah, that's a box we're about to open in the bank in the next semester, by the way, to help the teams and the research professionals to start measuring the impact of their research projects. Let me just share the screen again,
Cool.
because
Great.
I really want to show this perception I have when it comes to all those definitions. Like here, we are discussing about ResearchOps metrics, but we also have research projects metrics, and we also have what I call the research system metrics, which is the discipline, the research team, the research in the company. It's another thing. In some companies, they might be mixed. They might be with the same person in charge of all of them, but in our case, they aren't. And we also have metrics, impact, and ROI. I'm not going to talk about ROI here because, like, to have a good calculation around that, we would need salaries of people in the majority of cases. I'm talking about impact, and I'm talking about metrics. The first thing I think is to think about research projects. This is the first bucket, and to think about types of impact of these projects. These are some of the types of impact I always talk about with people that I mentor and colleagues and friends. A research project can, for example, stimulate new experiments or new research projects. There's a type of impact. A research project can, for example, increase contact between stakeholders and users. A research project can, for example, define a product strategy. But we only can start tracking the impact if we, the researchers, don't think that the research is done right after the report presentation. The research is not done right after the report presentation. We need more time to know the impact we had. So something that I used to do when I was a researcher was to create a calendar event after a month, after 2 months, when I deliver a research report, to knock on the doors of the main stakeholders of that research and ask them, what has been done with the insights I told you, I shared with you?
Mm.
What hasn't been done? There's also a type of impact. We ended up saving money because we were going to launch a feature that nobody would
Mm.
use. For example,
Mm.
that's also
Mm.
something. So that's my take on this. And we also have like this research project metrics. It's different. In my head, it's different. I'm just sharing this with you. Metrics from impact. This is impact. These are metrics. And this, like I'm going to answer this question, sharing that a research project, for example, can increase a conversion rate. For example, I've not joined, I've conducted a research around monetization, which was quite challenging for me. And our main metric there was the monthly recurring net revenue. So we ended up like with the insights, increasing the MRR in the product with what we have done, the changes in the plans and pricing. So it's, by the way, public on my Medium, is all in Portuguese. It's a public case. So yeah, it's possible to achieve and to connect the dots with these other metrics we know, like these startup metrics that people know. And also we have like the customer effort score here. the system usability scale here, the NPS here, frequency of use, like to close a partnership with the data team. Like we have suggested to do that. That was implemented. What happened right after, I don't know, 4 months? We implemented that. People started to use this more often or not. So those things, I think we were supposed to do. And I know that in some cases we can't because our leaders, our managers don't see that we should be doing that, but they want us to do that at the same time. Right after we finish a research, we should be doing for the next one. Like in the next day, let's do another one, let's do another one. And we don't have time to search for the impact. I think it's a mindset that should be changed on leaders as well, not only we discussing here. And we have this research system metrics, just sharing this. In some cases, they can be shared with the ResearchOps team. In others, they don't. They get in the responsibility of the research leader or the UX research leader, which are, for example, number of research studies conducted per quarter, per year, average time to deliver actionable insights, average time to complete a research project by method. For example, for qualitative methods, we need an average of 30 days to do research, or in a quantitative method, we need, I don't know, 2 months to complete it because in our context it's quite complex to do quantitative. Yeah, those things. I think if we understand these definitions, this division, I think everything gets easier. For me, it got a lot easier to understand these different buckets, these different boxes of metrics, impact, ROI, and if we're talking about ResearchOps projects or the system. Does that make sense? It's the first time I'm launching this. Like, I don't know if it makes sense.
Yeah, I think it does make sense. I think yeah, and I think it's good to differentiate these things, right? The metrics versus the impact. And the impact is so hard to measure, especially when you look at this. Like a metric is easy to change. Sometimes it's hard to ascribe it, to attribute it, I should say, to the research. Yeah, I agree. From Calliope as well. Yeah, bring these things together. But I think for me, the question that when someone creates a study on Great Question, they're asked a question which is, what's your title, but also what's your goal here? What's your research goal? But it's pretty broad, right? It's like I think it just says what is your research goal, and maybe there's some helper text in there. But actually, we probably want to get more tighter on that, right? Which is like, what decision will this actually impact, and/or what metric is this likely to impact, or multiple metrics? And I believe with Intuit, we're working with them to tie that research goal to their like big, hairy, audacious goal, or however they structure, they think about their goals, and to make it customizable in that context. But then, and the second piece of that is like, okay, this is what you would try to change post-fact, post-research. What actually did change? And maybe it's even this on a scale of 1 to 10, maybe it is, right? Not at all impactful to trajectory changing, would actually be really elegant. Or maybe the common question is, it's too early to tell, or it's too hard to go and describe this. But I know for us, when we've gone and been working on some new functionality around card sorting and tree testing, and researchers laden all the way through the project. It really feels like a best-in-class case study in how to bring research and design together. We're actually going to be sharing a talk on it at Config conference, if anyone's going to that, the Figma conference in San Francisco. But it changed the entire functionality. There were features that felt like nice to haves, including like the ability to paste in your card sorting results and exporting, and how you would manipulate these, and you would a closed card sort, an open, or a hybrid. Help us understand that no, a hybrid is actually really important. I'd be able to paste in, because I'm doing my work in a spreadsheet or in a Google Doc, be able to paste in my card sort is so much easier than don't make me work in your system to go and do these things, because I'm actually already comfortable with other tools. And these things that I felt were nice to haves, and I was like, engineering is not going to want to build these, or product is not going to build these as the first pass of the feature. actually through the research, they became critical. These are the things that were incredibly frustrated in the previous tools and actually would massively fast track their process. And so it was no longer just me banging this drum that I think we might want to have these things in here. Product was like, we need these in design. Engineers were like, oh, I can see why I want to bring these things in here. And so it's changed the results. And now that we're in beta, people are frothing over it. And this is not to pump up our product, but it's more like it did actually change the trajectory of the feature. Now, the proof will be in the pudding when we actually publicly release it and conversion rates, all that kind of stuff. But it isn't too early to tell. And I think we can draw a direct line between the research ops effort that was related to that and the research effort and then the impact. Whew.
Yep,
There's a lot here. There's
I
so much
agree.
here. I feel like we could keep talking
Yeah,
about this for a long time.
yeah, that's a heavy content. When we were discussing about the this webinar, I was like, okay, how can I make this a little bit more soft? But yeah, it's a full day of conversation about metrics and ROI. This is why we didn't. This is also because we didn't talked about ROI. Things get a little bit heavy.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Uh, and I feel like we're probably going to need to do a post facto here as well. Like there's probably another blog post that's going to come out of this
Yep,
that
let's do
goes down
it.
these rabbit holes. I guess, measuring impact, measuring success of research ops, and we've talked a lot about this, but I guess maybe when you're evaluating tooling right now, um, I know you've kind of got an expectation that they're going to have things like a research effort score, and I think that is going to be the case. We're obviously working on it. I'm sure it's going to become a gold standard. But I guess, are there other things that you look for in tracking and communicating success as you're evaluating tools? I'm not sure how much you're even evaluating tools. I'm sure things are fairly locked down given the size of the organization and you're using Microsoft Teams, and there's probably a bunch of other Microsoft tools. Um,
Nailed it. That's it.
yeah, yeah, okay. All right. Maybe that's the question answer
Yeah,
then.
that's it. But I can say, like, I can share that that's something like I to look for a tool right now, and that's something I always talk with my colleagues as well and people in the mentoring sessions. Um, we would need to know how the tool will help us more than giving the software. Like to give the data, to give usage data, to help us define in some way the next plan for recruitment processes or something like this, more than giving the software, what can come from this relationship? I think that's something I would look for. And it's connected with the research effort score, or like if people and tools and softwares can, like if they create another name for this score and to create a different one, it's good as well. Like we just need to know if what we're doing is generating value and if people are like, if we are in the right way, in the right track or not. We cannot like just talk with the UX designers and I think we should do that. I think we should do more trainings. No, we need numbers.
Mm, mm,
We
mm.
let's practice what we preach, like inside the company, inside the organization, basically.
And so,
I,
when you think about like the major shift that's about to happen or the next major shift, right? That's going to happen in research uh, ops.
mm,
Do you think it's about this measurement of metrics? Maybe there's something else. Maybe it's this plus. Um,
yeah, like I wouldn't say like this specific measurement. I would say that we should show more our impact because like we have this image. I don't know if Carl is going to find it, but there's this image of a theater, also in Newsonoma Group articles. I think it's inside a service design article or something like this. Um, that it shows like people behind the curtains and in front of the curtains, like the actors and the people behind it. Research ops is behind. Like we are not even in talk with the users, like or we shouldn't. In cases we are like in this mixed 50-50 work of reops and UX research. That's not the case. But we are not in in the front stage. We are in the backstage. If we are in the backstage, how can we show that what we are doing, that's the one, Carly? You're the best. How can we show that what we do is impacting our customers, our clients? And in our case, our customers are the UX designers. That's quite challenging. We won't have metrics like monthly recurring revenue. We won't have NPS. We might have a employee NPS. We might have something like this. We need to adapt things and think that we research ops teams are companies inside another company. We have our clients, and we need to look for that. I really like to talk about strategy, metrics, and something that I don't think we talk like enough about in research forums in general, not only about research ops or just UX research. It's leadership in general. I think we have a good way, a very good opportunity to start growing more our leaders. I missed that when I needed to be a leader or to be a coordinator. It was not that difficult for me because I really love to study leadership and all those things. But for a researcher that is asked, okay, now you have to be the coordinator. I don't think we are prepared for this. Leadership, I don't think we talk enough about it. And the product managers, they do in their conferences.
Yeah,
That's
and
something.
designers are the same. Yeah, I love that. That's great. I think if I were to throw, actually, I'm not even gonna. I think you've said it great. I'm gonna leave that. This is a great trend. We're at time. There are a bunch of questions we didn't quite get to. We're going to follow up and answer those in a blog post. Pedro, I'll send those to you, and we'll nail through that. I do want to say thanks for making the time and putting these ideas out there, because I think it's massively important for us to go and identify how we can have impact, because ultimately that's where we are going to be better valued in the organization. The organization values you, but where you can go and give them, it's this metric and that metric and that metric, you make it so much easier for them to say, oh, this makes sense. Now I have this, you've given a number to my instinct on the impact that you're having on the organization. And that's very important. Looking forward to working together more as we go and roll this out through Great Question and go and give everyone these superpowers that you've gone and given to Banco do Brazil. So yeah, thanks very much. Leave everyone to it. Thanks for everyone coming.
Thank you, Nat. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
See you all soon.